72A7, which is the law that Congress passed really for this situation. It is an act of violence on a mass transportation system. It is a law that is there because acts like this affect the American way. It affects our daily life. It is random acts on a train that are the thoroughbred and how we get through our cities to work, to our places of education, to our families. It is our way of American life. Crime makes people stop taking that light rail. They give up those opportunities, and we are here to be sure that we can save our city and bring those opportunities back. The maximum penalty for this federal crime is life in prison without parole or the death penalty. Of course, each individual case receives its own sentencing hearing by a federal judge that will decide the sentence based on the individual factors in this case. Of course, at this point, we're only making allegations. We do have a charge. We filed a criminal complaint. It has been signed by a federal judge. The charges have been brought, but they are just charges. Getting there has been a process. I want to thank the FBI, which has an incredible team that has investigated this case. They've ensured we had a basis for federal charges. I want to thank the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department that started this investigation, apprehended the defendant immediately after the incident happened at the light rail station. And I want to thank the District Attorney's Office and Spencer Merriweather, who brought first-degree murder charges right away when this happened. I think everyone knows the facts of this case, but I will briefly recitate what is in our criminal complaint. And that is that at 9:55 on August 22nd, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department responded to a call that there had been a stabbing on a light rail train. They located the victim, who had suffered stab wounds in her neck, on her hand. They found a pocket knife on the scene, and they apprehended the defendant at the rail stop. Now, much more recently, the surveillance video was obtained from the train, and that's really what gave us the basis for federal charges here. And the surveillance video shows Irina Zarutska getting on the train by herself in her work uniform, sitting down by herself in a row that just happened to be in front of DeCarlos Brown Jr. Approximately 4 minutes later, Mr. Brown pulled out a pocket knife. You see him on video open that pocket knife, and he stabbed her 3 times in the neck. He then walked off the train with blood dripping from the knife. This is obviously a horrible, horrible situation. But this is why federal statutes exist. They exist to take care of situations like this because no one should sit in fear when they sit on the light rail. If you sit in fear on the light rail, you sit in fear when you walk around the streets of our center city like I do every day. You sit in fear when you go to our parks like I do with my daughter every weekend. You sit in fear at our sporting events, our entertainment venues, at concerts, at restaurants, at our museums. These are all the things that we have worked as a city so hard to build. We built this city. Companies have come here in droves. More than 150 people move here every day. We built a city that people want to live in, but we can lose that all if we allow violent crime like this to go on in our streets. And I'm here to tell you, the federal government is going to save our city from that. To Erna's family, we will pursue justice. We will use the full weight of the law. I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate your attention to this case. I know this has gotten national attention. I know that there is a lot of thoughts about this case. There's policy decisions being made because of this case. But as someone who just talked to the family of the victim, I hope you'll remember her. Because this is hard for them. It's their case, and we will bring justice here. I'll now turn it over to Special Agent in Charge Barnacle.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Thank you for everyone that's here today. You know, I'm saddened to be up here today talking about a violent, heinous act that occurred on our metro system. This could have happened to any young person that was riding the train that night, but it didn't. It happened to Irina, and her death is an absolute tragedy. There is no one who will debate that point. Even more tragic, she chose to come to Charlotte to escape the violence of her war-torn home in Ukraine. Irina had settled into her community. She made friends. She immediately got a job. The first day she was allowed to work, and she got a work permit here, she got a job that very first day. She worked at a senior citizen center. She worked at a pizza place. She took care of animals in the neighborhood. She was building her young life. She had recently moved in with her partner. Her family let us know she graduated from college in Kyiv with a degree in art and restoration. We don't know the extent of what obstacles she faced in the Ukraine, other than we did learn just a few moments ago that she was living in a bomb shelter. Sadly, everyone saw in surveillance video how tragic her life ended. We're shocked. We're saddened. It's very, very difficult. This young lady rode that train many times. She was probably tired after a long day at work and just trying to get home to her loved ones, but she never made it. In an instant, her life was over, and her mother, her father, her siblings, her brother and sister, and her other family and friends, their lives will never be the same. As you heard from U.S. Attorney Ferguson, we spoke with Erna's mother, Anna, and her uncle just a few minutes ago, and we told them of the federal charges brought against Carlos Brown Jr. We hope this additional charge will help bring them a measure of justice and accountability for this horrific act. I want to thank our partners, Chief Jennings and the CMPD. We work every day with this police department. We co-locate agents and officers and detectives from the police department on our violent crimes and safe streets task forces. This is not a policing problem. CMPD is out there every day protecting our streets. You may not know how close we are to the police departments, but throughout this state, our partnerships with local police departments and state departments are critical to the work that we do. The task force partnership is a force multiplier. CMPD and other local partners work closely with the U.S. Attorney's Office, this office, to assess whether local and state cases are appropriate to charge federally. We are pleased to supplement the Charlotte and Mecklenburg Police Department's work on this investigation and the appropriate federal charges that were brought forth today. The FBI will work tirelessly to hold violent offenders accountable. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, has empowered every field office to shift resources to violent crime to help keep our city's streets safe. We will continue to work with U.S. Attorney Ferguson, the Department of Justice under the direction of Attorney General Pam Bondi, and the FBI Director Patel to pursue justice for Irina and her family and for the people of Charlotte. In closing, Mr. Ferguson mentions this. The system has failed us in this case. There is no doubt. Everyone deserves to go about their daily lives, to get to work, to get to school, just across town without the fear of being attacked. We should live in a country and in a city where accountability, if you're convicted for a violent crime, is always paramount. Well, thank you, and I think we'll take questions.
Yeah, I want to add one thing. Before we take questions, I want to add one thing that I hope the family won't mind me sharing. But after Irina's death, the embassy in Ukraine called and said, "We'll help you bring her home." And her family said no. They said, "She loved America. We're going to bury her here." So I think we can give her an America to be proud of. As Mr. Barnacle said, something here is broken, and we're here to fix it. We're happy to take your questions. Brett, yeah.
In terms of speaking with the family, can you just talk a little bit more about that conversation? Because clearly it was emotional for you. So can you talk about that conversation? What was the family's reaction to the new charges? And because not a lot of people have actually spoken to the family, so can you talk more about the conversation?
Sure, and we were both there for the conversation, so you can add what you want. It was a very heavy conversation. We talked to her mother. We talked to her uncle. Her mother speaks very little English. We had a translator from the FBI there, and they wanted to talk about their daughter. That's what we talked about. Yes, ma'am.
Casey Jones from WCCB. Special Agent Barnacle, you mentioned that this was not a policing failure. Where exactly did the system fail?
It's hard to say. This man was charged 14 times. There's been numerous encounters with police departments. He was arrested by the CMPD in January, but he's still on our streets. So we'll have to figure this out, right? This is not a problem the FBI or the U.S. Attorney's Office can solve. We can work cases. We can react to crime. We can be proactive and try to prevent crime. Look, I think, President Trump's spoken about this case in the last few days, and he has daughters. I have daughters. So it really hits close to home, right? And why do we have people, whether there's mental health issues or violent crime issues, why are they on the streets? Why our buses, our trains, our transportation systems almost homeless shelters or mental health shelters? We need to fix that. We need to clean that up. We can only do so much. This is going to take a lot more work from society, from the people in power and the politicians. It's not something I can solve. But we can work cases, and we can bring people to justice.
Hunter.
Hi there. Thank you for doing this. First off, charges came very quickly after the state side. I just wonder why it took this office 2 weeks to do one federal count here.
Yeah, well, federal charges are usually slower than state charges to begin with. I mean, the federal system is the first line of defense. They charge our violent crimes, our murders, our things like that. The federal system is really for repeat offenders, the worst of the worst. And in reality, the fact pattern here screams of a state crime. I mean, there was no gun used here. This was a knife case. There really is not a natural federal crime here. The federal crime we have is because it happened on a light rail system and because Congress has decided that that is essential to society. So we took the time to find that statute, do some research on that statute, make sure that we had the allegations and the facts to support that statute. And like most of our cases, we make sure our cases are pretty airtight before we bring them. And this was actually quite fast for us. We will sit on cases for months sometimes to make sure that we are successful once we bring them.
I want to follow up on
Yeah.
that. Is this the right charge? Because it's my understanding under this statute, I'm not an attorney, but that he would have had to have been trying to take over the train or threaten other people, like personnel on the train. There is a federal charge for entering with intention to commit a homicide. That's a different statute. I just wonder how strong is this charge?
Yeah, well, so it is a broad statute, and part of the statute came out of 9/11, and some of it is meant for hijacking a train or things like that. But we are charging A7, subsection A7, aggravating factors, subsection B1, which are exactly for this situation. They are for when there is a passenger on the train and you do an act of violence on the train. And the reason for that is because hijacking a train is obviously a terrible thing that disrupts society, but making it so no one can ride the train or is too scared to ride the train is about the same threat. It's a terroristic act to make people afraid to go about their daily lives. That's what terrorism is, and that's why this statute is completely appropriate here. Now, this is a criminal complaint. We will indict later. We continue to look at facts. The FBI continues to investigate this case, and we may have more charges later. But for now, we have this charge, and we think it's an appropriate one. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Ryan over at the Showbiz. Thank you for doing this. Have either of you been in discussion with the White House since this footage was released? And if you have, could you share anything about what was discussed?
I have not spoken with the White House.
No, nor have I.
Okay, then an alternative question if I could. My editor wanted me to check. There's some conversation, people who believe that they hear Carlos Brown say after the stabbing in that footage, I got that white girl. It's unclear to me if he says that. Are y'all able to confirm if he did say that or what he said?
We are still investigating. Obviously, we have the videotape. We have some other evidence as well. Our investigators who are sitting here in the front row are looking at other angles. As Mr. Ferguson said, there is potential for other federal charges. So we'll just let the investigation play out. I can't comment directly on the facts.
Eric.
Yes, sir. I'm curious, you both mentioned the fragility of losing faith in the transit system. There have been a lot of people around this asking whether the transit system has structural flaws. Earlier you said it's a breakdown in the system. So how does the transit system itself fit into the broader picture of this case?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear something's broken here, and it's probably more than one thing. I think certainly the state justice system has some issues, but I think you're right, the train does too. And we've seen recently people go on the train and report what's going on the train. It's become a mobile homeless shelter. It's an air-conditioned place. There's no one checking tickets. No one's using tickets. And quite frankly, the revenue from the tickets that could be collected could pay for more security on the train. So I do think there's more we could be doing on our train and more we should be doing, but that's not our job. Our job is to prosecute this case. Yes, ma'am.
Like you just said, that wasn't really a natural fit initially for federal charges. At what point did you get involved to start looking at that for federal charges, and what made you
You were first.
So, Irina was murdered on the 22nd at about 10 p.m. I learned of the case on the 23rd in the morning. Our team was already in contact with detectives at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. From that day forward, we were in conversations with the U.S. Attorney's Office. So we've been talking about this from the get-go. But we pushed a little bit harder when we saw the videotape, right? And that I didn't see that evidence early on, and horrified like everyone else when I saw it, and as was Mr. Ferguson. Everyone was able to get together and come to a charging decision.
And for us, it was a little bit, the act itself doesn't scream federal crime, but when we started to see the effects of that act, and we saw the public saying, we're not riding the light rail anymore, we're afraid to go to the park, that's when my mind and my office started saying, there's maybe something more than a single murder here. This might be a federal charge. And we started digging and found this charge. Yes, ma'am.
Courtney Davis with Spectrum News. This isn't the first incident that's happened on Charlotte Transit. There have been violent offenses on buses as well in the last couple of years. What is it that brought this to that level to get this amount of resources behind this case as well?
Yeah, well, we're concerned about the buses, too. This is not just about rail, and we're concerned about the streetcar. We're concerned about the special transit vehicles that are used for handicapped individuals. This is a problem with transit, and it's not just transit. We're concerned about our parks and our streets and our center city where convention goers come in droves. We're concerned about all of it. It takes a very particular case to get a federal charge, and sometimes, unfortunately, it takes kind of a snowball effect to get those federal charges, and we see that in a lot of our cases. We'll see, a whole lot of robberies before we get a gang case, or a whole lot of drug users before we get a big drug distribution case. Here we saw a lot of little crimes in the transit system that led to one big crime that was on video, and we found the federal charge. So that's how we got here. Yes, ma'am.
Should people feel safe on public transit in Charlotte?
Right now, I don't know. I can't answer that question. I can tell you that it's my goal for people to feel safe on the light rail in Charlotte. I think it's essential to life in our city that people feel safe there. I hope that one day everyone feels safe riding light rail. Right now, I think we need to see changes before people are going to feel safe on light rail. Yes, sir.
If I'm guilty, could you once again explain the sentencing in depth?
Yeah.
A little bit more in depth. What's on the table?
Yeah, and thanks for the question, because federal sentencing is significantly more complicated than sentencing in the state level. So if convicted, and convicting, that will be a conviction by jury of his peers in federal court over here. If convicted, we have a probation office that puts together a fairly lengthy report about that individual defendant. And that process takes about 3 months sometimes. It is a very lengthy report about his background, his prior crimes, his upbringing, anything that a judge will want to look at in sentencing. And then we will ask for a sentence, which I imagine will be a significant sentence in this case, but we don't know yet. And his attorneys will have an opportunity to argue for some other sentence that they think is appropriate. It goes before a federal judge. The federal judge considers that pre-sentence report, considers our argument, considers the defendant's argument, hears from the defendant if he chooses to speak, and issues an appropriate sentence at that time. The death penalty could be considered under this statute. We don't know if that's something we can seek under these facts yet. We're still researching. We're still investigating. But it is available under the statute, yes. Yes, sir.
You said earlier, especially in the said that there's potential for other federal charges. Can you confirm that it maybe includes hate crime or racially motivated crime, some sort of that something that you are
That is you.
Looking into, yes. We're looking into every available charge in this case. If we find facts that this was gender motivated or race motivated, we will absolutely bring a federal civil rights charge in this case. If the facts don't show that, we won't. We're only going to bring a charge that the facts support. The investigation's ongoing. We think we very fairly have the facts for this charge, but we continue to look and we may add charges, and civil rights charges are certainly on the table.
One more question.
Two quick ones.
Yeah,
Over
Hunter.
the weekend, this garnered national attention, as you know. Both of your bosses got involved, especially last night, publicly about it. I'm curious, what do you say to people who see what's happening here today and wonder if this is political grandstanding here?
Yeah, I don't see how you would see this case as political grandstanding. And if you do, I think you should have the conversation that we just had with Irina's family, because there's nothing political about that. This is a heinous crime, and we are going to remedy it. I don't know what the politics is here. If this was a political grandstand, there would be an opposite side to this. Is the opposite side, let's allow murders on our light rail? Is the opposite side, let's let people out of state prison so they can commit other crimes? There's no other side to this. There's no politics to this. This is a pure and simple federal case.
speak to the?
I want to say something.
Sure.
Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can debate that this woman was violently murdered on a train. Director Patel has changed the priorities of the FBI to address violent crime, the scourge to our cities and our country by cartels, by transnational criminal organizations, and by local street gangs. We have put resources to those matters. We anticipate more and more cases to be charged across North Carolina into a violent crime space. We're committed to working this. This is a priority from Washington, and I'm not afraid to say that. And Director Patel will get up there, and he'll. I wish he could be here today. I'm sure he does too, to share the priorities of the FBI. Our job is to conduct investigations. Our job is to put people in handcuffs and turn them over to prosecutors to prosecute. And that's what we're going to do. That's what I have 200 agents in the state working full time to keep our streets safe.
Russ, I just wanted to ask,
Yeah.
we've seen in state court how long some of these cases involving mental health disorder with forensic evaluations can take. How does that play in federal court, and do you find that being a hurdle in this case?
So, and I cannot say that will be an issue in this case or not. We don't know if there will be some sort of mental competency issue here or not. There is a process in federal court for that. Generally, a defendant sent for an evaluation. That evaluation can vary in time. We've seen it take a year in some cases, depending on the level of treatment needed, the level of evaluation. Sometimes psychiatrists need some time to get to know a patient before they can evaluate them. There's all sorts of variables. But we have had cases where that has happened, and ultimately a judge will decide if he is competent to stand trial or not. But one thing is for sure. This person cannot be allowed on the streets. He cannot be allowed on our trains. So whether he is involuntarily committed or he is behind bars for a violent act, he should not be on the streets of Charlotte.
Would that track happen concurrently in any way? With, obviously, that's happened with the state as well. There are, at least, have been concerns about his mental competency in the past, claims, statements that he made as well. Would that happen concurrently or on separate tracks dealing with federal and state charges?
Yeah, so and obviously we want this case to go as fast as possible to bring justice for the victim's family. That is most likely going to be separate tracks because the state system and federal system have different standards, different legal standards, different processes they go through. I've called the district attorney about this case. We're going to work out the best way for the victims to get this to go forward, whether that's federal going first, state going first, some sort of parallel paths. We'll have to figure it out, but there are definitely challenges to that. And generally when we bring a federal charge, the state charges are dropped. But this is a case where we have a first-degree murder charge, and we are supplementing with a federal charge, which I think tells you a little bit about the state system, that we can't trust that a first-degree murder charge is going to take someone off the streets for as long as we need them off the streets. We have to supplement with a federal charge. So.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I really appreciate you covering this. Thank you.
Thank you.